Welcome to First Page Fridays. I'm April Davila for Sit Right Here, and today we're going to look at somebody's first page. It's the first page of a novel, first page of a short story, a memoir. I don't know, I haven't even read it yet. We're going to look at what's working, what could be better, where are the opportunities. If you would like to send in your first page to get a critique here on YouTube, there's a link below in the show notes. You can click there, send in your page. And hopefully, at some point, we do have a bit of a backlog, but we will get to yours, I promise. And also welcome your comments. This is a fairly new project that we're doing, and would love to know what y'all are thinking about it. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's jump into it. I'll move myself out of the way. I would just like to put a disclaimer out there that this is my first read through it, so bear with me if I have trouble with pronunciations, and seeing that it's science fiction, sometimes there are particularly challenging words in those. Let's jump into it. Title of your work, Planet Keeper. You don't have to include the title when you send yours, or the genre if you don't want to. And ideally, we should be able to tell the genre from the read of the first page. Like if you pick up any first page and it's sci-fi, we should be able to know on the first page that it's sci-fi. But whatever, you included it, that's fine. We'll just roll with it. There's a pounding in his head from the incessant beeping of the monitors. Error code 187, signal lost from the satellites. Adam Law knew he should just turn them off. They no longer served a purpose. He no longer served a purpose either. If he turned them off, the utter futility of his situation would come crashing down on him. There was no longer any reason for him to keep them operating. There was no reason for him to keep operating as well. It all happened so quickly. 6 months into his assignment at the North Arctic Climate Control Station, the climate control satellites began falling from the sky. Satellites are not just supposed to fall from the sky, but they did, unleashing an environmental apocalypse across the entire planet. Adam Law remembered the look of horror on the faces of the 2 climate control specialists assigned to the station with him as the satellites plunged from the sky. Why did they fall? They demanded of him. You're the technician. Can't you figure out what happened? Adam Law didn't have a technical explanation, but he had a suspicion. He wasn't trained as an electronics technician. He'd been forced into this role by default. He was an Arctic climatologist assigned to the station 6 months ago, but was never sure why. With the establishment of the Climate Control Satellite Network, all funding for climate research had been eliminated. Error code 187 wasn't something he could fix. There were no more satellites. All right, so intriguing. I love the stakes of where we're dropping into this. The one thing that jumps right off the page to me, error code 187, the 187 is the police code for murder. So if this is intentional, it's an interesting choice. I'm not sure what you're trying to say with it. Signal lost from, but you might choose a different number. I don't know. 187 is just a pretty well-known police code meaning murder. So maybe a different number, unless there like murder plays into this. Maybe you're foreshadowing something to come. I will leave it at that. I'm not going to change it. I do really like this opening. There's a pounding in his head from the incessant beeping of the monitors. Error code 187, signal lost from the satellites. I'm not a copy editor, but when I notice little things, assuming you're writing in American English, the period goes inside the quotation marks. Adam Law. Okay, so in reading this, we're in the North Arctic. It feels like an Earth story. We know it's science fiction, and we do, even if you hadn't told us it's science fiction, we're talking about satellites. We're talking about what sounds kind of like end of the world kind of issues. So we're already getting the sense of that. But I'm curious about the choice of Adam Law. Adam Law. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. And if there's a reason that the name is unusual, great, keep it. But consider that it kind of threw me for a second. Also, my American cisgender female bias is it sounds like a feminine name ending in an A. I guess that's more of like, I'm married to a South American, so the Spanish bias in me, I guess, is seeing Adam Law as more of a female name ending in A. Something to consider. Again, your story, your choice. I'm not going to tell you what to name your characters. Adam Law knew he should just turn them off. They no longer served a purpose. He no longer served a purpose either. I feel like this should be broken up a little bit more. So I think if it were me, I would probably break it up here. If he turned them off, the utter futility of his situation would come crashing down on him. There was no longer any reason for him to keep them operating. There was no reason for him to keep operating. I would make this either as well. Doesn't quite like it's an either. Fits better there. There was no longer any reason for him to keep them operating. There was no reason for him to keep operating either. I might say it had all happened so quickly, just to give a hint of like in the past tense, right? And again, I'm not a copy editor, and this is more developmental line editing, but this is my instinct that it had all happened so quickly. And then again, I would break it up 6 months into his assignment, because now we're jumping back, right? Which is fine. Especially the way that you've brought us into this story. I mean, usually what I would say is give us a little bit more present day before you jump us into past tense, into a flashback. But then you come back to error code wasn't something he could fix. So let's stick with where we are right now, and consider that you might want to give us a little more detail about where he's at. So there's a pounding in his head. So all we know right now in terms of the present day scene of the story is that things are bad. Our main character is a guy because of his, and the signals have been lost, and he's feeling pretty desperate. Like there's no reason for him to get going. We don't have any context for this. We don't know where he is. So just consider a character who is thinking through these things. I mean, so there's an error code. So we're assuming he's indoors, but if he's indoors or like if the error code's coming through headphones, maybe, and he's out on a snowmobile just driving because there's nothing left and he's just hoping to get out of the snow before he dies or something, versus a guy who is the last man standing in an Arctic facility, which it does seem like if he's still in the place where he was in the flashback, it seems like he's more in the facility. Tell us a little about it. Is it glass walls? Is it like private investment kind of stuff? Or is it government cheap as hell with like, gray walls and cement and everything just very cold? Is the heat working? Now and you can start to hint at like, how bad has it gotten? You can also try to find ways to tell us something about him other than his name. Is he tall, short, old, young, white, black? Like, can you drop us any hints? Because this is an unfamiliar name. I mean, it'd be one thing, like if his name, you can start to hint with names at a little bit of culture. And again, you're playing into assumptions, but that's how the human brain works. A main character named Kareem is different than a main character named John. Again, these are assumptions, but you can start to layer in. That's what we do as authors. We play on the reader's assumptions and we layer in meaning with our choices. So because you can't really do that with this name, because it's, at least to me, it's an unfamiliar name. It doesn't say like, oh, that's a Latino man. Like, I find myself wanting a little more information about this person. So can you give him like a present? We've got the issue of the error code. Maybe he's trying to turn it off. Give him a conflict in the present moment of the opening scene. So there's a pounding in his head from the incessant beeping of the monitors. Error code 187, signal lost from the satellites. And you can picture a character who's like banging on the box, trying to get it open because the tools are locked in the other thing and it's making him crazy. Like you could up the tension of this scene if he was trying to turn it off but can't. And that would give you opportunity to show like if he's like if he's like a big dude, maybe he's trying to pull the thing off the wall, he's trying to brute strength it. If he's more of a nerdy kid, he's like pushing his glasses up and trying to read the instructions on the side or something. I mean, I just feel like you could tell us a little bit more about where and when we are before you jump into 6 months ago. But I'm intrigued by this, right? Because it's very apocalyptic. So I'm intrigued. I'm going to keep reading, but my overall suggestion is usually to give us a present day scene before we jump into flashback. And to do that this is pretty quick. It's not really enough time to do that. You're the author. You have to make the choice of how you're going to manage this. Those are just my thoughts. Okay. 6 months into his assignment at the North Arctic Climate Control Station, the climate control satellites began falling from the sky. Satellites are not just supposed to fall from the sky, but they did, unleashing an environmental apocalypse across the entire planet. Now, okay, this is really good. There's opportunity here. And this is why I think like if you wait and jump into it even just a little bit later, so that you're not rushed to get back to the present day scene, you could slow down a little bit here. Satellites begin falling from the sky. Tell us exactly what happened. The environmental apocalypse. Like you don't have to spend pages doing it, but like what I'm fascinated. So satellites began falling from the sky. First, it was the damage done by the impacts. Then computers went down. Then the fire started. Like three short little kind of boom, boom, like bullet, like they would be like little bullets, right? Of like this, then this happened, then this happened. And then, so instead of telling us that they're not supposed to, we know they're not supposed to fall from the sky. I mean, this is a voice thing. I'm not saying that this is wrong. I'm just saying there's opportunity here to like give the reader just like a hint of the apocalypse that happened when they started falling from the sky. Adamla remembered the look of horror on the faces of the two climate control specialists assigned to the station with him. So I might say the other two climate control specialists, though he's, and that's a hint at, he said, wait, he's a climatologist. So probably you wouldn't want to say other because that would imply that he's a climate control specialist. The look of horror on the faces of the two climate control specialists assigned to the station with him as the satellites plunged from the sky. I'm curious here, could you tell us, are they the only 3 people at the station? How big is the station? Is there staff? Is there cleaning crew? Like, it's a different story. This is an opportunity to start to fill in the world of like, how many people are there up there with him? Or at least how many people were up there 6 months ago when the apocalypse started? Why did they fall? So then I would say, why did they fall? They demanded of him. And I might, I don't know. You're the technician. Can't you figure out what happened? And again, how to say this? If we're doing this as kind of just a snapshot of what happened, when you start using dialogue, you're bringing us into scene. And when you start bringing us into scene, I want the details. Like, where are they when they demand this? Are they standing in a control room looking at the monitors? Are they watching news on TV in the lounge? Like, are they watching on their smartphones gathered around, freezing their asses off because the power's gone out? Like, I start to want scene. So if this were me and I was just doing like a brief memory of this thing that happened, but I don't want to go completely into the scene, I would probably do these as italics. Because then it's almost just like that's a memory. Putting it in italics instead of quotes is like, it's not happening right now. We're just kind of remembering it. Adamla didn't have a technical explanation, but he had a suspicion. See, if he has a suspicion now, I want to know what the suspicion is. So maybe waiting on that. Adamla didn't have a technical explanation. He wasn't trained as an electronics technician. Okay, so did they know that? Wait, let's see. You're the technician. Can't you figure it out? He wasn't trained. Okay. Yeah, so I would take this part out. So you're basically saying like he wasn't yet. They're saying you're the technician, and then he's justifying saying he wasn't trained as an electronics technician. He'd been forced into the role by default. Who hasn't been there, right? When you're working in some big company and they're like, oh yeah, we want you to do this thing that you have no training for. So very relatable. It also speaks to a character that people generally trust. So that you're hinting at this character with that line. He was an Arctic climatologist assigned to the station 6 months ago. So we already said this was 6 months. Okay, so 6 months ago. If we're still in the flashback, then it's like a year ago. So I would, if it were me, I would just say he was assigned to the station. But never sure why. So he was never sure why he was assigned to the station. Who's his employer? I'd be curious. It says here, okay, we get down to, no, we don't get any hint of, I would love to know if it's government, if it's private, there's opportunity here, right? He'd been forced into this role by default. He was an Arctic climatologist. I think you could just say he was an Arctic climatologist. with the establishment of the Climate Control Satellite Network, all funding for climate research had been eliminated. Okay. This feels like a little bit of a jump too. Like this is a big idea here. So you're jumping back. I like this where you say 6 months into his assignment in the North Atlantic, the satellites begin to fall. And then we're going to change this to like bullet points. So I'll put here, describe the chaos. And I'm not going to do it because it's your story. Adamla remembered the look of horror on the faces of the 2 climate control specialists assigned to the station with him as the satellites plunged from the sky. Why did they fall? The demand of Adamla. You're the technician. Can't you figure it out? Adamla, I might even say, you could even trim this. Adamla wasn't trained as an electronics technician. He'd been forced into this role. And I would say the role, because it's past tense. This is, yeah, we get into grammar issues. He'd been forced into the role by default. He was an Arctic climatologist by, you might say, by training. And then here, with the establishment of the Climate Control Satellite Network, all funding for climate research had been eliminated. This is a big idea. So what I'm getting when I stop and think about this, what I'm getting from it is that the government or private institutions or whoever is in control of these things, and whenever this is taking place, they figured out how to control the climate, and they set up a satellite network, and then they just left it. And so without funding, there'd been no money to hire a technician, and so the Arctic climatologist had been pushed into it. That's a lot of pausing to think about it to get there. So I would say expand this out a little bit. And this is opportunity to put us in time too. And I don't know, I mean, it depends on, is this Earth? It seems like Earth, but you might say back in 2310, right? So you're talking about our future as the past. The government had established a climate control satellite network and then scrapped all funding. Something like that. Like actually, like give us, if it's going to be such a big idea, you got to give us a little more context, but I think you could also take a little more time there. Error code 187 wasn't something he could fix. There were no more satellites. So again, this question of like, can he fix it or can he not? So it seems like he can just turn them off. He can't fix the error, but he could turn the error code off. I think this would really be served by getting a little more time to him trying to turn off this incessant beeping that is making him nuts, and then let that take up the first page, the first 250 words or so. Then give us a little bit of context. 6 months ago, the why can't you fix it? And then explain like I'm not a technician. And then even deeper into that flashback is a little bit of global context, what the government has been up to, how the funding been cut for this and that. And then this is really skillful of bringing us back in, but bring it back to error code 187 was never gonna be solved. I had to stop the stupid beeping, or Adam had to stop the stupid beeping. So that way you bring us into an actual like juicy conflict-ridden scene, give us a little context, and then let that beeping bring you back into the present day, whatever your present day is for this story, conflict. This is juicy though. I love a post-apocalyptic story, and especially it's always kind of fun to mess with planet Earth, right? Like I'd be curious how far in the future this is set and where this is going. So I would definitely keep reading. It's solid, and there's also some opportunity to juice it up a little bit. I hope this was useful. Thank you so much to the writer who sent it in. This doesn't work if you guys don't send your pages. And on that front, I will just remind everyone who, if this is not your page, that there's a link in the show notes. You can click on that, send in your page, and we will get to your page and edit it. And always, always anonymous, friendly. My goal is to be supportive so that we can all learn together as writers. I will see you all next week. Thanks. Bye.